To another video, Purple Political Talk here. Today is Tuesday, November 23rd, 2021. And today we're going to be discussing the 2022 Senate election and do an update on our map and take a look at all the shifts in a lot of these races that have happened, as well as some national trends that are going to impact races all around the country, and look at where the 2022 Senate map currently stands. But before we do begin though, I want to remind you guys to like, subscribe, and to turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. We have some great content coming your way. And also that channel memberships are now open. If you would like to become a Purple Political Talk channel member to support the channel, you could do so by pressing the link down in the description. And in that spirit, I did want to thank Adam Hurst, one of our Purple Political Talk channel members, for helping us out in the channel. Now, with all this said, let's get started with the video. So, currently the national environment for the Democrats is not that good, which means that, technically speaking, we should be looking at a Republican quote-unquote wave year. I think that next year's midterm elections are going to be one that's going to be a little bit out of the norm from what we have seen, because we still have to take into account that while the Republicans have gained so much support, they've garnered so much support, there's different aspects of polarization that have caused many different political phenomenon which are going to impact this race. Before, there was a lot more independent voters that would open-mindedly think about these races and vote, on a state-by-state basis. But the current polarization in American politics is going to cause these races to shift massively. And I think next year's races are going to be very interesting to measure the political climate moving into the 2024 election, which is, again, going to likely be another very polarized election. But, at a general level, what we can see here is that, the Democrats have their fair share of safe states. I think that this map, generally speaking, if we look at it at, at a bigger level, it's not the best map, I guess, for Democrats. This is a more Republican favored map. I think that another thing that's really going to impact this race is kind of everything that happens with Joe Biden and his administration moving forward. That currently we're looking at a race where, the Republicans have that advantage. They have that advantage of doing the offense. Being the offense is always going to help you, because defending in politics is one of the hardest things you're going to have to do. But generally speaking, I think that it's going to be something that it helps out most, if not all, Republicans out there. So on your screen right now, you're going to be seeing the races that I think right now, as for the moment, are going to be safe. There's a couple of these races that, certainly are going to be very interesting. Some of these races are going to be, further away. They're going to be bigger margins, but I do want to talk about them. So if I've left some of those blank, but at a general level, the West Coast is going to be strongly Democratic like usual, and I think that's going to stay the same. Looking at the Northeast, for the most part, very conservative area, and of course Illinois. And as for the Republicans, you have the Bible Belt that's going to do very strong for them. This is a place where Republicans have solidified their support. In the past, even as early as 10 years ago, we've seen Democrats do somewhat well in some of these races, and I think it's now time where the Republicans have solidified these races. As for everywhere else, it's still up in the air. Many things can happen, and we're going to talk about those races individually. So let's start off by talking about the likely states. Likely states are states that would go between 5 and 15%. So these are going to be, races that are going to be a little bit more comfortable for the party that I expect to win in these races. And let's start off with the Democrats. I do think that places like Colorado are places where the Democrats are going to be able to solidify a lead. I think that there's a big possibility that the race diminishes, the margin diminishes. And this is Michael Bennett's seat. And I think, honestly, he's pretty popular. I think he's going to do very well. Now, I think that, of course, what is going to be impacting this race? Not so much local issues. Local issues are things that have impacted Senate races in the past, and I think that that's something important. But in the day of polarized politics in America, where nationalized politics kind of trumps everything else, I think that's going to be, going to help out certain Republicans in certain states. I think Colorado is one of them that's going to make that margin go down a little bit. I think it's still going to be solidly going for the Democrats in that likely column, and I think that's actually the only likely state for the Democrats. This map is not that favorable for Democrats. We're going to have to do a lot more work, spend more money, and, find the right places to win these races. As for the Republicans and their likely states, I think Marco Rubio down in Florida, he's going to end up winning by a margin of over 5%. I think at this point, it's something that I think is very likely. He's built up coalition of voters with Cuban voters, Puerto Rican voters, and voters all across the state that are going to carry him to a victory over 5%. He's done it in the past, and in Florida's current political climate, where it's a more Republican state that has ever been, I think it's very likely that we see Marco Rubio do very well here. I think other states that we could be looking at victories by Republicans by over 5%, certainly the state of Alaska. This race is going to be more interesting because of a primary, not so much the general election. Kelly Shibaka and Lisa Murkowski going at it in this race. At this point, I think Lisa Murkowski will be able to hold on, but that challenge by Kelly Shibaka is going to be very hard because, again, a Trump candidate going against you, it's never going to be easy, and I think that's something that's going to end up happening. As far as other races, I think that Iowa's a race that could end up going for the Republicans. I think by a likely margin, this race is going to be interesting because Abby Finkenauer, former representative, is running. I think that she's going to make sure that Chuck Grassley doesn't go by a safe margin. Chuck Grassley has been in Congress for years, and I think that, honestly, he's going to end up winning in that race. Now, I think that, of course, Abby Finkenauer is a strong candidate for Iowa, and that's going to make the race go down a bit. So that covers all our likely states, and I think the thing is that we're looking at a race where candidate choice is going to be very important, and all these different things really do add up. Now, moving on to our lean states. Lean states are states that would go between 1.5% and 5% for the respective parties. So I think that there's going to be a lot of lean races in a lot of these states, and those are ultimately the states that might end up choosing who gets, the majority in the United States Senate. Remember, Democrats only need 50 seats since they're in the White House, and Kamala Harris would break the tie. So, taking a look at this map, let's start off with the Democratic lean states. I think at this point, they have places where they can win by lean margins. New Hampshire is a very specific scenario. I think the state of Nevada, I think that Adam Laxalt could possibly win here. I think, though, that there is a possibility, I think, right now, of Catherine Cortez Masto to still win here. I think that the Republicans in Nevada need a little bit more support. And again, as time progresses, I think Adam Laxalt and his campaign could be able to increase their chances at this race. And, that's also kind of where I see the end for the Democrats in their lean state. Again, this is going to be a tough race for all Democrats nationwide, mostly because of the national environment. They're in charge of DC and they haven't done much, and I think a lot of voters are going to look into that. I want to take a look at Virginia. It was sort of a nationalized race, and I think that for the Republicans to win more of these places, what they really need to do is, employ the Glenn Youngkin strategy, where you look in and you start doing more localized issues. And with that, I think that there's some places where Republicans could end up winning. In New Hampshire, we still don't know if Chris Sununu is going to run. Now, I think it's likely that he will run. Time is ticking, though, and if he doesn't run, I think this race goes likely for the Democratic Party, for Maggie Hassan. I think at this point, Chris Sununu is likely to run, and I think he's going to win the race easily if he does win that race. Taking a look at these other states, Ohio, I think is a race where, the Republicans are going to win comfortably. I think it's likely they could win it by a likely margin since it's an open seat. And if the Democrats choose the right working class Democrat to represent them on the ballot, I think it could get closer. So right now I'm going to put it on the lean column. I think that this race could definitely change. There's a lot of moving factors, and I think it's something that's going to be very interesting moving forward. Now, taking a look at our tilt states. Tilt states, I think, are states that are going to be extremely close. They're going to come down to the wire, and I think every state, with the exception of North Carolina, I should have filled in North Carolina for the lean margin. I think that this race is going to be comfortably won by the Republicans by probably 3 or 4 points. Again, a lot of these races are, when we say comfortably won, we have to think about it in another perspective. It's going to be comfortably won compared to other margins in the past. 3 or 4% is certainly not a comfortably won race, but in some states it certainly is. And I think North Carolina, the Republicans are going to do well. Now, every other state left on this map, I think, is going to be extremely close. And when we look at these races, I think we see, down to the wire races is going to be extremely close. And these races are truly the races that are going to decide the majority in the U.S. Senate. What gets done in Washington for the period between 2022 and 2024 when the next Senate elections happen. So taking a look at this map, I think that in Wisconsin, I think the Republicans are going to narrowly win. I think that they're going to run the right candidate, even if Ron Johnson chooses not to run. I think at this point, this is going to have to be something that's going to be decided soon, and it's something that could end up happening. Now, the rest of these states are going to be very interesting. I think in Arizona, I think it's going to depend. I think this state is a pure toss-up. I think Mark Kelly could win here, but we have to remember that Mark Kelly did win by a more comfortable margin than Joe Biden. Now, I do think that the important thing to see here is how the national environment is going to feel. And that's going to be very impactful in Georgia and Arizona. How are suburban voters feeling towards the towards the Republican Party? I think by then, if these candidates in these states employ the Glenn Youngkin strategy, we could see both Arizona and possibly even Georgia turn Republican. As for Pennsylvania, as of right now, this is a race that has recently changed. Sean Cornell, the leading Republican candidate for the nomination in this race, and he was likely going to be the Republican that could win this race. He just dropped out of the race because of, court battle, court issues, and it's family issues, which is really going to be impactful in the race. He has dropped out of the race, and I think as of right now, the Democrats have a slightly stronger candidates when it comes to Connor Lamb or John Fetterman. So they're going to have to find a candidate that could run in this race, a strong candidate. And when they do that, I might consider changing this race because the country right now is very pro-Republican at a general sense. The environment is favorable for the Republicans, and honestly, it just comes with a swing that comes when the ruling party takes control of Washington. It happens in almost every single midterm. So I think this is what the map's going to look at. I do project the Republicans will win the majority. I want to know what you guys think about this map down in the comments, as well on social media. Share on social media what you guys think about this map. And yeah, that covers my current prediction for the United States Senate 2022 election map. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If so, please give it a huge thumbs up, like, subscribe, turn on post notifications to be up to date with our latest content. Again, thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye.